This is Algebra 2, Lesson 3.2, Solving Linear Systems with Substitution. My first example says, Edna leaves the trailhead at dawn to hike 12 miles toward the lake where her friend Maria is camping. At the same time, Maria starts her hike toward the trailhead. Edna is walking uphill, so she averages only 1.5 miles per hour, while Maria averages 2.5 miles per hour walking downhill. When and where will they meet? Letter A says, define variables for time and for distance from the trailhead, and then write a system of two equations to model this situation. So we'll start with x and y. X is going to be the hours, and then y will be distance to the trailhead. So Edna is at the trailhead. She is 0 miles from the trailhead, and she is walking 1.5 miles per hour. So her equation would be 1.5x for her speed, for her slope, and I could put plus 0 because she's 0 miles from the trailhead at the start of the question, but I'll just leave that off to simplify it. And then Maria, well, Maria is walking 2.5 miles per hour, but she's walking towards the trailhead, so her slope will be negative, and she starts 12 miles away. Set the equations equal to each other and solve for x. So I'm going to write the first equation, 1.5x, equal to the second half of the second equation, and then I just need to solve for x. So I'm going to start by combining my slope terms. If I add 2.5x to each side of the equation, I will have 4x equals 12. Divide both sides by 4, and x is 3. So we think back to what this means in terms of our situation. It will take them 3 hours for Maria and Edna to reach each other. Letter C says, what is the corresponding y value? I need to take x is 3 and substitute it back into my original equation. Now I can do the top one, I can do the bottom one, I can do both of them. And I think doing both is a smart idea because then we can check our answer. If we get the same answer for both y's, then we know we did it correctly. So 1.5 times 3 is 4.5. Negative 2.5 times 3 would be negative 7.5 plus 12. Hey, guess what? That is 4.5. So they end up hiking a total of 4.5 miles before they meet. We have two more examples that are just going to go through the same solution process just to make sure that we have a couple examples to look at, but we set the second half of the equation equal to the second half of the other equation. Now this one has 4 terms there. Before we didn't have that extra intercept because it was 0. So we're going to start the same way. The first thing we're going to do is combine our x terms. Now I start by getting rid of the smaller of the two. So I see a minus 2x. I'm going to do a plus 2x. This will eliminate my negative, and it'll be a little easier when I go to divide. I bring my x's together. Then I'm going to bring my constants together. So I want to bring this 5 away from the x. And then my last step is to divide both sides by my number in front of my x. And now I have x equals negative 0.5. We're not done. When we solve a system, we always need 2 answers, an x and a y, so I'm going to substitute that x value back into my equation. And just like before, you only really have to do one equation. You can do the top equation, or you can do the bottom equation, but I really like to do both because that lets me check my answer. So, multiplication first. 2 times 0.5 is 1. A negative and a negative mean that's going to be a plus 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. 2 times a 0.5 is 1, but it's negative, so 5 and negative 1 is 4. I got the same answer for both, so I know my x and my y are the correct answers. Letter B is the same, but there's a lot more to it because my first equation is in point-slope form instead of slope-intercept form. So I'm going to need to distribute combine like terms to get that in the right format before I can do what I'm doing on my last question. I think I'm going to erase this just because I need a little bit more space. So I'm going to start by distributing that 12. That's 12x minus 24. Then I'm going to combine like terms. And we practiced that in lesson 2.5 in the last chapter. So now I'm kind of set up how my first question started, where I have my two equations in intercept form. So I can bring my x's together. I'm going to get rid of the smaller of the two x's. Negative 3 is smaller than 12. So I get rid of negative 3x by adding it to both sides. Ooh, I don't know how that happened. At least I caught it before I kept going. And then I'm going to bring my intercept away from my slope. Add that constant to both sides. To get rid of a plus 12, I do a minus 12. And that looks like negative 30. Divide both sides by 15. And x is negative 2. I need to substitute that value back in. I'm feeling kind of lazy. This one looks a little more complicated, so I'm just going to sub it into the bottom one. And negative 3, sub in a negative 2. That is a positive 6. 6 minus 18 is 12. And I just feel lazy. I don't know. Negative 2 times 12 is negative 48. Negative 48 plus 36. Negative 12. It's a good thing I checked my answer because I got a negative 12 and a positive 12, and I'd forgotten the negative on this answer. So y equals negative 12 and x equals negative 2. That's it for the notes. Good luck on the exercises, and let me know if you have any questions.